There are 3 things you need to consider this year before you go hunting to increase your odds of punching a tag. The first thing that I think may be one of the most common errors we all make, I make it too as hunters, that keeps us from seeing and harvesting deer, and that's considering how we're going to approach, hunt, and exit. It doesn't matter if you're saddle hunting, blind hunting, or spotting and stalking. If you're alerting deer before they get within range, the hunt's basically over. You're just having a good hike in the woods. Now, I love hiking in the woods, but I love venison also. So if you're going out there to punch a tag, whether it's to get some venison or a set of antlers, you need to really consider how you're approaching, where your scent's going while you're hunting, and exiting in case you don't punch a tag during that hunt, or you're like me and you got multiple tags in your pocket. And it's all about thermals and wind direction. Sound is an issue, but you can get away a lot with sound. But that old doe or buck gets a snoot full of your scent, pretty much the hunt is over unless that arrow or bullet's already going towards the venison. What we like to do is think about thermals, because that's most dominant over wind direction early morning and late evening at the peak of deer movement. We don't need to argue when deer are moving. There's so many deer fitted with GPS collars, and has been now for a long, long time, that we know they move primarily early morning and late afternoon. And that's probably because when the thermals are changing. When stuff's heating up like right now, ooh, that scent's starting to rise. But this morning, I promise you, if I'd been hunting here, my scent was going down towards that valley. Mid-slope is a tough place to hunt. I like hunting at the very highest point or the very lowest point, depending on the time I'm hunting, the temperature, and what the thermals are gonna do in that situation. Hunters that don't consider thermals or wind directions, they may be called vegetarians or lucky, one of the two. They're probably not gonna harvest a lot of deer. Every now and then they harvest a monster, and that keeps people saying, oh, just ignore the wind. But that's not the odds. If you wanna put the odds in the favor, you need to understand how you're going to approach, hunt, and exit without alerting deer. A lot of y'all already doing some scouting, either in person with trail cameras. I know I am, both boots on the ground and got my trail cameras running. But when you find a lot of sign, maybe I'll shock you right here, you probably should not hunt that spot unless the conditions are perfect. Where there's the most sign, deer spending the most time, well, they feel very secure there. And where they feel the most secure, it's probably a thermal hub or somewhere where that scent is just swirling. So they're getting protection from predators, 2- and 4-legged, from multiple directions at once. When you find just a gad of sign, often it's best to figure out where deer are coming from or going to, depending on the time of day, and try to cut them off as they're navigating out of or into that area. We want to hunt deer to have the most success where the conditions are least favorable for them, but they're still comfortable there. And we call that threading the needle. If there's just deer beds everywhere, they obviously feel comfortable there, and you probably can't be there, at least within bow range, within 30 yards of them when they're there. But hunting those approaches or travel corridors lets you find places where a river or road or a pasture or something pinches them down, and the conditions are not 100% in their favor, but they need to pass through there anyway. Those are ideal places to punch a tag.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Steel, Morel Targets, Fourth Arrow, Soil Pro Outdoors, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Burris Optics, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
Speaking of those travel corridors, this year, especially in many parts of the whitetail range, you need to know where the acorns are. Here at the Proving Grounds, and I got buddies in Illinois and other places, massive acorn crop coming on. Massive acorn crop. In some places, the limbs are literally drooping like a pear tree because there's so many acorns on the limbs. In that situation, deer don't have to move far. They bed, eat within just a few yards at times, it seems. And it's really difficult to approach, hunt, and exit, get in and out of there without alerting deer. If you're seeing a big acorn crop coming in your area like we are here at the Proving Grounds, boy, Daniel and I are gonna be hunting hard opening day on, trying to tag a buck before all those acorns hit the ground, because it's gonna change deer patterns. So when you're scouting now, you gotta think about, is the farmer cutting the crop field, or acorns getting ready to drop, or whatever's changing, how are those food patterns gonna change? And you gotta understand that the bulk of whitetail hunters, the bulk of us hunt in timbered country. Bulk of us don't hunt Iowa. We don't hunt cropland, we hunt timber country. And when there's acorns everywhere, deer patterns can totally change and be really small, and it's tough to get in there without alerting deer. If you do bump deer, they just go over the ridge or wherever they're going, in the swamp, wherever, there's more acorns. So when there's a huge acorn crop like there is this year, it takes a skilled hunter to get in there and pattern and not alert deer and punch a tag. Having a game plan and doing some scouting ahead of time with these considerations is a great way to punch a tag. Kind of like living life. We need to have a plan for our life. And of course, the plan that always works out the best, even when we can't see the future, is following God's will for our life. When we know His will by studying His Word and applying it to our lives daily. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.